So on Thanksgiving Day, obviously, I made my famous vegan pumpkin pie and everyone loved it. But what really stuck out, they said the pie crust was the best pie crust they ever had in their whole lives. You know, everyone thinks pie crust is so easy, and while it is easy, there are a couple of tricks to perfection that I'm going to show you guys today. And the number one trick is that you definitely need your fats to be super cold. So I just took this coconut oil and my vegan butter out of the freezer. Like, you know, coconut oil normally melts the minute you look at it. So I put it into the freezer. I'm going to just kind of rough chop it up so it's smaller than this big giant mound here. And then we're going to just pop it right into the food processor. Yes, I use a food processor for making my pie dough. It really is the best way to cut in the fats throughout the flour. So there, I've got my vegan butter just chopped up, nothing special, just, you know, into smaller pieces. The food processor is mainly going to do all of the work. So now the next key to success is ice water. Now, obviously, I'm not going to use all of this. I just needed something to make some ice water. My third fat is going to go into this recipe, and that is liquid vegetable shortening. I've got a little bit of sugar with a pinch of salt. Now, you guys know me. I'm a stickler for using the scale if you want your recipes to come out perfect and consistent every time. And as the author intended, you don't know how many times I get people saying, I don't know what happened, the recipe came out terrible, and what did I do wrong? And I'll always point to maybe a heavy hand in measuring flour for the culprit of recipe failures. But I'll be honest, I don't use the scale with every single recipe that I make, pie dough being one of them. But as you see, if I am going to measure with a cups measure, I am a bit of a fluffer and a scooper. So I'm fluffing up this flour that's already in the bin, and then I'm going to kind of fluff it into the cup and then just level it off. When I use this method, I do get the closest to the standard weight of 125 grams per cup. All right, so now we're going to put that cold coconut oil and vegan butter straight into the flour with the sugar and the salt, and just pulse it. This is going to cut that cold butter and coconut oil through the flour. This is an old Julia Child method of making pie dough, and I adopted it probably 20 years ago and never looked back. It really is the best method for making pie dough. All right, I just want to show you. Yeah, that feels really good. It's pulsed out through. I don't feel any really big chunks of that coconut oil. The flour is still cold because none of that fat started melting through. I do want to work quickly so that it doesn't start to melt from the friction and from just kind of sitting. So what we're going to do now is feed through the top oil and then the ice cold water. Now, here's where you may start to think that your recipe is completely off and maybe you did something wrong, because this didn't come together like a soft dough, like a pie dough like you're expecting, but that's good. And this is the absolute key to a perfect flaky pie crust. Trust me, stop here. So go ahead and just dump that out onto the table, and it's going to look like a disastrous mess that just didn't work. And I'm simply going to just mash it all together by hand. And Sometimes I may have to add, like, literally just like I'll dip my hand into the cold water and sprinkle a few drops over to help it come together. But this one is actually coming together beautifully. And you might say, yeah, right, because it looks so crumbly and horrible. But believe me, this is the absolute key to success, to the flakiest, most beautiful pie crust you will ever try. So I'm just going to knead it together by hand, get every single little crumb back into this mass of dough, and then we're going to chill it for just about an hour to let the dough absorb in, let the dough relax actually, and let the flour absorb through the liquids, and you are going to have a dream come true pie dough to roll out for the most perfect flaky pie crust ever. So let's get this dough into the refrigerator to chill for just about an hour, and I'm gonna have a cup of coffee. So this dough is pretty perfect. It's been chilled for about an hour. I can feel that it's way firmer than it was when it came out of the food processor. And so naturally, as I go to roll it, it may want to try to split apart a little bit. You could always just take it up and sort of re-knead it so that it's not really falling apart. I think that's probably one of the biggest problems people have with making cookie doughs or pie doughs, is that when they go to roll it, it starts to fall apart. Well, that's just because it's a little bit cold, and you just sort of need to knead it. You need to knead it back to a pliable consistency, which is really what I'm doing here. So as you see, I'm always trying to keep it as round as possible, because what you start with is what you end with. And obviously our pie wants to be round, but as you roll, it has a tendency to sort of get misshapen and get a little bit squared or rectangled. The other key is to really keep it as same thickness as possible by keeping an even amount of pressure on the rolling pin at every point on the dough. Mom's old-fashioned trick. We still do it. So now just kind of press that pie dough into the sides and make sure it's flush onto the bottom. So you see I have about a ½ inch to an inch hanging over the sides. Let's get this into the refrigerator to chill, and then we're going to form the flute. So I literally only chilled it for like 5 minutes, just to make sure that the butter and the fat inside of this pie dough isn't getting too soft, because this is the part where we're going to slightly trim the excess dough so that it's all even, because in some spots it's like an inch and some spots it's like a ½ inch. So it's really just maybe an inch hanging off the lip of the pie plate. So I'm just going to kind of cut that. Right, and here is the art of the pie shell. You're going to just fold under. You're going to sort of roll it under and roll it all the way around. See how I'm just sort of rolling it and tucking it? This is the original tuck and roll. Get my fingers out of the way so I can show you. It's basically just taking the dough and rolling it. See how I'm doing that? Basically just take it and roll it. And now with your thumb and forefinger and your other pointer finger, you're just gonna pinch and crimp as you go all the way around. You could either freeze this, you can blind bake it, you can pour filling into it, like do whatever you want with it. This is going to be the most amazing pie crust you've ever tried.